Well, hi everybody, and I'm Cedric Porter. I'm the editor of World Potato Markets, and I'm going to give you a European market outlook for the Potato Business Summit. World Potato Markets is a weekly briefing on potato and potato product trade, production and price and information, and we have some very loyal readers in North America, so many thanks for that. And yeah, like everyone, I wish I was in Texas this year, and I thought I'd find the nearest place to Texas for me. And this is a diner in my local hometown of Tunbridge Wells in Kent in England. And yeah, a Texan diner, Smith & Weston. But like lots of diners, restaurants, pubs, all closed across England, across the whole UK, and across large parts of Europe as well because of the pandemic. And of course, coronavirus, that continues to overshadow the whole of the world market and will probably do for many months to come, despite now having the vaccine and the vaccines actually being administered across the world. And hopefully that does give us some light at the end of the tunnel. So what's happened in 2020? The pandemic sort of hit just at a time when European growers were planting their potatoes, and there was actually a slight increase in the amount of potatoes grown as people partly responded to an increase in retail fresh potato demand, and also I think because they already had the potatoes booked and on the farm, they planted them anyway. So that actually meant a slight increase in the amount of potatoes planted in both the EU as a whole, the 28 countries, which for these purposes includes the UK, and also in the total EU 5, which is Belgium, France, Netherlands, Germany and UK. There was a slight increase in there. So more potatoes around, which did have a big effect on the market. And there we see what these are latest prices, December prices. So the columns there are contract prices, and the line below are free buy prices, free market prices for Belgian potatoes, for Belgian processing potatoes. And so there you can see a big difference. So more than $100 a tonne difference between the free buy and the contract price. Not much really prospect of those prices going up until much later on in the season. These are figures here on how much potatoes have been processed and how much potatoes have been used. So the left-hand one, that's Dutch, that's Netherlands processing. So you can see that blue line, the 2020 line, a massive decrease in April, May time at the height of the first part of the pandemic, when there was production really in a lot of places almost ceased, and that left a lot of potatoes on the market. Some of those were taken off in schemes with government-backed schemes taking those off the market. So well over 1 million tonnes of potatoes got taken off the markets in Belgium, Netherlands and France. The figures on the right, that's Belgian figures on usage. This is up until the middle of November. So you can see there the 2020 figure, the second on the right there. That's down, not dramatically down a little bit on the 10-year average. But still some processing going on, and probably around about sort of 90% of previous levels. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. There has been increased table potato retail demand, and I know that's happened in North America as well, and with people growing or eating a lot more potatoes at home as they feed their families as they don't go out so much. And that's really a trend that we've seen in Europe as well. So there, the left-hand figures there, that's France. So you can see a big increase. That's nearly a third increase in French potato consumption at the beginning of the pandemic. But that increase is actually being maintained all the way through. And we've seen that at the end of the year 2020, when places have been locked down. There's still been a very strong demand for potatoes at home. The German figures on the right there, a little bit more difficult to interpret, but actually you see there the right-hand column in each of those clusters. that's consumption in 2020. So each year, each month since actually since February time, there's been more consumption of potatoes just about every month there. In the UK, the AHDB in the UK, the body that looks after potatoes and promotes potatoes, they're saying an 8% increase in potato usage in the 9 months to the end of September, with a 14% increase in home use actually outweighing a 28% decrease in out-of-home sales. So that sort of balanced that out there, but still very disruptive on the restaurant trade. There have been some recoveries in fry exports. These are the main 5 exporting countries in Europe, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Germany and Poland. And you can see they have a very big decrease in April and May, and then a sort of recovery, a little bit of a stalled recovery in September, expecting more in October. But then perhaps less fries in November and December exported because of the ongoing pandemic and the closure of restaurants, particularly in Europe. A crucial one here, this is EU exports outside the EU. And actually, that back line there, they're October figures. So you can see that actually October 2020, there were more, I think it was the 3rd largest monthly exports of fries from the EU ever. And the only reason it was down on October 2019 was because October 29 was the highest figure ever. So a sort of recovery in exports outside the EU, and I suppose that sort of shows that the EU market is still very damaged, but there has been recovery in other markets, and there has been a strong export campaign to export more fries as well from the EU. Here's figures. This one is showing exports to the USA from the EU, and you can see there's been quite a big jump there. Well, actually, in the January to October timeframe, a 55% increase in exports from the EU to the US of frozen fries. So that's a big jump there. A 43% increase to Canada, but we're not talking such a large tonnage. So it may be around getting on for 150,000 tons exported from the EU to the US in 2020. So just looking at the rest of the 2021 season. Increased home consumption, I think, is likely to remain as long as there are lockdowns, and we continue to see lockdowns and perhaps tighter lockdowns in Europe as the vaccine rolls out, as people try and keep the coronavirus under control. But there is that hope with the vaccines. Vaccines are now being administered throughout the EU and the UK, and that could mean quite sort of different in maybe only 2 or 3 months' time. There might be quite a difference. So we could see restaurants really sort of reopening, and not back to normal, but starting to get back to normal by March time, which would actually still give us 6 months before most of the 2021 potato crop arrives. So still time to sell more of that and use more of that. EU processing production is probably in 2020 was around about probably of potatoes for processing was probably down about 5% than lower than it was in 2019. So there's less processing potatoes around and more retail packing table potatoes, if you like. And I think there's stricter grading, so people are grading out more potatoes. The store losses, greater store losses. What's happened in the EU this year is the banning of CIPC, the anti-sprouting chemical, and people have been using it alternatives, and there's an adjustment to how they use those alternatives and getting used to those. So we're probably seeing more losses in stores. And all that added together, we could see actually a tighter market in the summer than now. So there's a lot of potatoes around now, but they could be a bit tighter by then. A lot of potato organisations in some of the main potato growing countries have advised growers to plant 20% less potatoes in 2021 than they did in 2020. And if that does happen, we will see a significant reduction in production of potatoes across those 5 countries. And with average yields, we would see a small crop, even with average yields, we would see the smallest crop since 2012. And we could see, if there's below average yields, we could see a very, very small crop, which you could argue would actually leave Europe in great sort of deficit, which might mean then opportunities for more North American producers and processors. For the last few years, I've come to America at the Potato Business Summit and talked about Brexit. And it's always been, oh, it's going to happen this year, or will happen next year, or we're never quite sure when it's going to happen. But I can finally announce it has happened. It happened officially back in January, just after the last Expo and Summit. But in the last few months, there's been discussions on what the transition will be, or the new arrangements between the UK and EU will look like. And there was finally agreement on Christmas Eve, an early, or not that early, Christmas present for everyone was a new trade agreement. Was done between the two. That's now being ratified between the parliaments. And what it means from January the 1st, there's no tariffs or no non-tariffs on goods between the two, so the trading between the EU and UK. So that's avoiding a 14% tariff on frozen fries and a 10% on fresh potatoes. That's been avoided. There are new customs and phytosanitary checks between the two. Previous to that, because both were in a customs union and a single market, there were no extra checks on potatoes and potato products as they came through each country. But this is also a problem for UK seed exporters, that there are going to be restrictions. Well, there is a ban on export of seed potatoes. And the UK is around about a third of the UK's seed potatoes go to the EU. Egypt's the largest single market, and that has that trade continues as normal. But the EU, because of their concerns over sort of divergence of standards, that has been banned. And because of other complexities of the whole system, that actually means that English, Scottish and Welsh seed potatoes won't be allowed to be sold into Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. But because it is borders the Republic of Ireland, which is still a member of the EU, that won't be allowed because of that sort of arrangement between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. I hope you're still keeping up on that. It is one of the sort of complexities that we're sort of discovering as we look at the trade deal in more detail. The UK is now negotiating, and it's free to negotiate its own trade deals with other countries. There has been a deal with Canada already agreed, which really replicates the same conditions that Canada has with the EU. And also, I think there's then going to be talks to go a bit further than that. And the UK has been talking with the US, and I think those talks will heat up. Gear up after the new administration takes place, takes its place in January 20, and after that there's going to be more negotiations. But food trade standards are very much sort of key issue between the two, so you can expect some sort of debate on that. There could be opportunities there for US and Canadian exporters to the UK. Frozen fry exports over the last year have only been in the hundreds of tons. So there might be an opportunity there, especially if there is a shortage of product from Europe in 21-22. So just really looking at some of the wider issues and lessons from the pandemic, I think one of the big things for me is that people have fallen in love with the potato or rekindled their potato passion. So it's time to make that most of that love. So I think it's time for us to be act as potato cupids and to get people to fall in love with their potatoes even more. But as people have been growing or eating potatoes, cooking potatoes, they've sort of seen how great food they are, either in its fresh form or its processed form as well. You know, more sales of oven frozen chips and things and fries at home, which is you know, for us as an industry, we really got to look at that as being a positive. And I don't really need to tell you all these, but what's not to love? This, you know, it covers just about everything: environmental, nutrition, best value. It can be used for other things. Can even be used to administer vaccines. Not going to be used for COVID-19 vaccines, but there's really, I don't think there's any food that gives as much as the potato. So really, a time for us to sort of focus. And I can understand why there are trade disputes and concerns between countries on trade, but I think really what we need to be focusing on is that real potential for people eating more potatoes all around the world, and rather than perhaps sort of fighting over one potato pie, we need to be increasing the size of the potato pie so there's more pie to share out for everyone. My simple lessons on trade disputes for you, because they can get very, very complicated. So one of the things that we've done in lockdown with potatoes was to start our own Planet Potato podcast. Don't expect the insight that you might get from the National Potato Council or others and the United Potato Growers of America. Don't expect that sort of insight on the market or whatever. But do expect celebration of the potato in all its wonderful forms, including a visit to a potato hotel. And that photo there is a potato having a post-lockdown haircut. That was the winner of the Potato Photographer of the Year. We had a visit to the museum that houses Mr. Potato Head, and also sort of stories about how potatoes brought people together during lockdown. So another celebration, and that's free to listen to on those links and also free to share. So please feel free to share. It's not just for potato industry people, it's for potato lovers, which we reckon is everyone in the world, or should be everyone in the world. So that's me, and so many thanks for your time and attention, and please do get in touch with us to give us a listen on Planet Potato, but also give us get in touch if you have any questions, and that's our details there. We do also do a Brexit newsletter on a monthly update on what happens with Brexit. So if you need to know a bit more about that, then please get in touch. So it just leaves me to wish you all well for 2021. 2020, most extraordinary year that perhaps most of us have experienced. But hopefully there is some better news on the horizon with 2021. And I really do think that it's time for us to celebrate the potato and really build on some of that love that people showed for the potato in 2020 and looking beyond that. And I think if you will be, hopefully things will be back to normal in 2022. And then in 2022, the plan is to have the World Potato Congress in Ireland then, and in May, June in Ireland. And I think you'll be most welcome to come over there, hopefully free of restrictions, so we can all celebrate the potato and plan its future together. So many thanks, and as I say, I wish you a happy and successful but safe 2021.